Not Marc McMain. Good afternoon, Chastity. How are you?
Charlie.
Hello. I am Charlie, in for Marc McMain, in for Taylor Hawkins, who is coming in hot, but very excited to be here. And it's always so weird. I say this every time. It's still so weird talking into myself. Like I'm like introducing myself. But
it's beautiful.
I feel like we have to be on our best behavior today now because Big Boss is here.
Super special guest.
Very special
guest. So excited.
Mr. Marc McMain, welcome back.
It's kind of weird being Marc McMain and being on the Marc McMain show. I feel like I'm in an alternate reality.
It is a little bit like that. A little bit like that.
You guys are doing such a good job in my absence, so I'm concerned there's not going to be space for me to come back when it's time to come
Always
back.
space for you.
I think I've been fired.
No, not fired. Not fired.
We can't fill your shoes.
This is an incredible lineup, though. Think about it. You start off with Mitch. Mm-hmm. Who just probably stirs the pot, geopolitical, nuclear warfare.
Little bit. Yeah, but in the best way.
Bob
Furr of
So
Madison
then Bob,
Trolley.
you get some levity. Bob's fun.
Bob is just so nice and just a genuinely jovial good guy.
Yes. And
the dude owns a trolley company.
Yes,
so
you can't take yourself too serious.
And he shows up with the trolley.
Numerous times.
Yes.
He's brought the trolley in the parking lot?
Yes, he took us out for a ride.
No way.
Yes, it was amazing.
It was so fun.
Yep. Wednesdays we have Jeff Hood in here.
So Jeff brings you back to the political side.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So stirs the pudding again.
Thursday we usually have Taylor Hawkins doing do a little political, a little more of a Christian view of things.
Yeah.
He's got the Eric Erickson side to him that I like.
And he's a brilliant young man. Even, I'm not saying it just because he's sitting to my right. He is a brilliant young man.
And then, of course, wrap up with Doug Collinsworth. So we always have an all-star lineup, but very honored to have you in today.
Well, just when you have everybody on the ledge, Doug comes in on Fridays and lets, nice and, because what he's talking about, vacation and golf, right?
And traveling. And it's always so much fun.
Wow. What a lineup. Where do when I come back, do I get like Sundays at like 10 p.m. or something, or what's my time slot looking like?
You'll have to send me your air check. You need to audition again.
Do I need to fill out a resume?
Fill out a resume, send me an air check, and I'll see where we can fit you in on the lineup.
Let's get Taylor hooked up here.
Let's get Taylor on here.
Yeah.
Tell us what's been going on with you, Marc.
Man, I've been a busy boy. I have. There's a lot going on. Obviously, campaigning. There's just not enough hours in the day, as the old saying goes. I think when I wake up, I hit the ground running. I'm running my businesses still. Then I go out and I'm campaigning, and then family issues. There's things going on. My mom right now is back in the hospital with a little issue, and so that's been a little bit overwhelming. But thank the Lord, I went and saw her today, and she looks amazing. She has made a complete 180 from where she was just 48 hours ago. So it's just life,
Well, we'll keep her in our thoughts and prayers.
Please do. Thank you, Chastity.
Yes.
We definitely will. Marc, listening to you talk about your schedule and how busy it is reminds me of the old adage, always ask a busy man to get something done.
Yeah.
It's the people who have a busy life who don't waste around and who make sure that, if they grab a task, they take it by both hands and they make sure it happens.
And I'll tell you what, Taylor, to build on top of that, one thing that I pride myself in, and I'm not saying it's always to perfection, is if somebody reaches out to me, especially if they place a phone call, I'm going to call you back, no matter how busy I am. And I found it interesting that in my multiple decades of being in business, some of the most successful people, the people that we would assume are the most busy, they always call you back. And so texting is a different story because I'm terrible at texting. It's not that I intentionally don't respond. It's just I forget. I'm in the car, don't look at it, and then 3 weeks later, I'll see a text. But phone calls, you call me, I'm going to call you back.
So we do have that caveat then. You must actually pick up the phone.
I do pick up the phone.
Well, that actually kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about today, Marc, is the lack of connectivity in our world. I feel like a lot of people are more and more engaged on what's going on online, and they're losing the ability to connect with people. And this was kind of highlighted and they're losing their ability to discern right from wrong.
Yeah.
This was highlighted just a couple days ago. The news broke that some online quote-unquote MAGA influencer named Emily Hart was found to be a totally fake account. This is an AI-generated account that a young gentleman in India named Sam, an aspiring orthopedic surgeon, has been running, and massive engagement on this account. And
unfortunately, does the fake account have a bunch of followers?
Yeah, tens of thousands of followers. Yeah, and was retweeted and reposted and things like that by some fairly influential people. And this person doesn't exist. This is a completely fake account created by someone who doesn't believe what they were saying. And I mention that because, social media virality in general appeals to our amygdala. Not to get too specific, but that's the emotional center of the brain.
I was going to say, I may need to break out of Webster's dictionary here.
But we have things in our lives that appeal to our prefrontal cortex, which is our decision-making center, our rational center. That helps us make good decisions. And then things that appeal to our amygdala, which is our emotional center. And look, emotional responses are sometimes necessary. But the reason I highlight this is because accounts like this farm outrage. They make us think that our friends and neighbors, people we live around, are dangerous human beings.
Right.
And that is in itself a dangerous thing, I think. I think we need to push back on that. I think we need to encourage people to rebuild and to build their personal relationships with friends and family.
I agree. And I think when you talk about social media, even myself fall victim to this, where you start looking at the hours that are accumulating on your phone. Because your iPhone tells you, how many hours a day you've engaged with your phone. Now, that may be phone calls, text messaging, and social media. And that number is reached a frightening level, especially for somebody like myself who is running for office and you're engaged in social media.
Yes.
Right? You're trying to share with your followers and those that are supporting you what you're doing so they know that you're out there and you're busting your tail to win your race.
Right.
And then when you look at the end of the day to go to bed and you see that the amount of hours that accumulated, those are hours I'm not interacting with the real person one-on-one. And so it's got, and look, you need it. There's a time and place for everything. But I agree with you, Taylor. It is a frightening disconnect that we see. How often is it that you've seen two young people that are sitting in the same house or same room and they have no conversation going between, but they're totally engaged with their phones?
I feel like it's not only a kind of relatively common occurrence, it's every single day. I mean, if you go to down here to Longhorn and have a dinner with your family, you look around, I would say more than half of the tables, more than half the people are on their phone. And it's so sad because here you are, you're even investing money and time to sit down, enjoy a nice meal with somebody, and then you don't even do them the courtesy of engaging with them.
I agree. It's a poison, and we've talked about it before when I was hosting a show. What is the solution? I don't know, but I like the first step that the legislature has taken this past year now, which schools are cell phones are removed from pretty much all public schools.
That's right. Yes, they extended the K through 8 ban on cell phones in schools in Georgia all the way through high school. I think that's a tremendously positive thing. We act like these poor kids are gonna die if they don't have their phone. Well,
right.
Then that's probably a sign that we need to take it away.
Amen to that. And think about it. What I think is going to happen is, yes, you're going to have some definite pushback. Kids are going to be frustrated. But if you're a young person and this is your addiction, if social media or your phone's your addiction, I promise you, I saw it firsthand with my son who went in the military. I promise you, after 2 weeks of being off your phone, you're not going to want it anymore. You're not going to miss it.
You're definitely going to notice a vast increase in your personal perception of how you feel, what your generalized happiness levels are. Not that we should be pursuing happiness, but your sense of peace is disrupted by the constant stream of short form content that is designed to play off. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, probably multi-trillion-dollar industry, advertising today generally, and it's all pushing across all social media content and all the platforms, different ways of snatching people's attention and holding it captive. And the idea that I'm going to be able to regulate that by, exposing myself to large amounts of it, I'm just going to, think to myself, well, it doesn't affect me. That's foolish.
That's right.
And I think the answer starts with at least understanding the danger of it. And then you move from that to controlling it in your life and the lives of those around you.
Well, I got to tip my hat to you, not to shift gears, but a little bit. I listened to your show a few weeks ago when you talked about the masculinity issue, not just for young men, but for all men. What a great segment. That you and I talked about it afterwards. I just thought, I don't know, Chastity, your thoughts, I thought it was absolutely spot on, fantastic, maybe even something that we bottle and put out there so people could rehear it, because it is, I think you went on for maybe 15 or maybe it was 30 minutes. I don't know if you did 2 full segments on it. I think every young man between the ages of 15 and not even young men, 85 need to listen to that segment. I think it means something.
Well, I really appreciate that, Mark. Folks, you're listening to the Mark McMain Show. This is Taylor Hawkins, your host, and I'm joined in studio by our guest and studio owner, Marc McMain, and we're talking about masculinity. And it does directly tie into what we were just talking about, Marc, because dopamine is the reward system. Again, not to get too technical, but it does matter. Dopamine is the reward system that God programmed, He hardwired into us to make sure, especially men, but men and women, have an urge to accomplish tasks. That's a good thing. We don't want to just be lethargic and sitting around. We want to accomplish things, want to move forward, want to create. God's made us in His image to be creative agents, and that's a wonderful thing. And pornography, social media, all of the things that we're seeing rise in addiction to rob you. They hijack your dopamine system, and they rob you of the ability to have delayed gratification in your life.
Yep.
And anything worth having, the pain comes on the front end. You have to commit to it and sort of work through it and put in the grind ahead of time if it's worth having. Anything where the pleasure is up front and the pain is on the back end, that's not a positive thing.
That's a great way of putting it. And I can correlate that to, not to bring everything back to me, running for office. It is now, there is aspects to running for office that are extremely rewarding. Probably the most rewarding part is knocking doors, that one-on-one engagement with potential voters and really understanding what people's concerns are. That is, there's no more just foundational level of understanding of what politics is all about than that one-on-one, because in that situation, you're going to get an unfiltered response. But running for office is hard. It's, I've been doing this for a year now for the state Senate race. And I call it, I'm in the dog days of the campaign, right? We're just a matter of weeks until the election. And not just myself, my team, my campaign manager, all those that have volunteered that are knocking doors for me. It's tough.
It is.
But the reward is, let's win this race. Let's get to the state Senate, and let's do things that are good for Georgians and that are good for Georgia.
And I so appreciate, Marc, that you are actually getting out there, because, as you know very well, you and I have been involved in politics for a number of years now, and so many people feel like if I've just made enough money, or if I can just raise enough money, I throw money at the seat and I can buy it. Unfortunately, that can be true, but it's no substitute in terms of becoming a statesman, in terms of becoming a real, an elected official that your district can be proud of.
Yep.
There's no substitute for actually meeting the people who are in your district, having those conversations, finding out what matters to them. There's just no substitute for that.
Well, quick funny story. So Chastity, about 6-8 weeks ago, was knocking Providence Club, a nice neighborhood up in Monroe. And I'm walking down, and JT, my campaign manager, is on one side of the road, and I'm knocking doors on the other side of the road. And I hear this voice on the other side of the street that I recognize. And I look up, and there's a young man standing on the roof. And I don't have my glasses on, so I can't quite make it out, but I hear the voice. And I say, Taylor? And it turns out it's Taylor Hawkins up on the roof doing a roof job.
That's right.
I got to see him in action.
Subtle plug, Joshua 19 Roofing, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening and you have any roofing needs, go to
He was doing a heck of a job
Joshua19roofing.com.
inspecting the roof. Whatever you were doing some roof work, and I was pounding doors, so we had a nice little visit. So I got to see you in action.
That's right. And vice versa. I got to see you in action. And it's something that, like I said, it's just so important, because I'm not going to name names, but you and I both know people in this neck of the woods who are attempting to buy a seat that they don't deserve. They haven't put in the work. They haven't showed up for their district in meaningful ways and building community. And now they think just because they're wealthy, they can throw money at the problem and buy a title in Washington. And that's very sad.
It is. It's something that's frightening. And the question, has to be asked is that the future of politics, right? Do we want to where people are just able to go and stroke a check and then become the next elected official? And so, I still believe when you look at our slate of statewide candidates, even regional candidates and local candidates, the Republican Party is in good shape. We have a deep roster of good men and women that want to participate in this process.
That's right.
But the fearful side is, what if a person who is not good, that doesn't share our values, but has the financial resources, so there's a lot that, and what needs to happen is the electorate, the voters, they've got to do the research.
That's right.
They have to go to the meet and greets. They've got to go to the events, to the barbecues, the forums, the venues, or at least go to the web pages. Interesting thing, Ted, when I'm knocking doors, sometimes I'll knock the door of somebody. When you ask for the vote, sometimes people say, hey, I'm going to do my research. And I love hearing that. It's like, really, it's like, I love hearing that a voter's going to do the research.
Absolutely.
Well, then the next question they ask is, what do you think of our current state senator? But they don't know.
That's right.
And so do your research. take your time. And folks, I've been there. I've been on that side of the equation where I'm raising my kids or I'm starting a business and I don't have time to engage, or I didn't have time to engage. So I get it. I'm 55 now. So I'm later in life. You, Taylor, are an anomaly, right? You're a 27-year-old. Are you 27?
26.
26-year-old man. I keep trying to make you older. You're a 26-year-old man who is fully engaged and understands what's taking place. But unfortunately, that does not represent the core of even people twice your age. So if I can encourage our listeners today to do one thing, it's look at who your officials are, county, state, regional, local, federal, every race, and understand who these people are before you vote.
It's so important, so
Yeah.
important. We'll talk more about that when we come back. We're going to go to a short commercial break, and we'll be back to continue the discussion with Marc McMain, owner and primary host of this show, The Marc McMain Show. This is Taylor Hawkins filling in. We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
Recently, I was on a flight writing on a legal pad, and the man next to me struck up a conversation. "Are you an author?" he asked. I said, "No, I'm actually a preacher." Well, the look on his face was priceless. How would you feel if you're stuck sitting next to a preacher for several hours? Surprisingly, though, we had a good conversation. He asked me several questions about Jesus, and I told him that the Bible says if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, Christianity is worthless. Ever thought about that? You see, the truthfulness of Christianity hinges on whether Jesus died and rose from the grave. There's great evidence for it, and I'm one of the billions of Christians around the globe who believes that the resurrection really happened. If Jesus did conquer death, then he's worthy of your trust. If he didn't, reject him because he's a fraud. I believe he really conquered death. What do you believe? This is Brian Wright, speaking right from my heart.
For devotions, visit rightfromtheheart.org.
Storm damage can shorten the life of your roof, and here at Joshua 19 Roofing, we make sure your home stays protected. We're more than just a roofing company servicing Georgia. We're committed Christians called to serve God by helping others. After this year's wind and hail storms, we've helped dozens of homeowners just like you start the insurance process for a full roof replacement. Visit joshua19roofing.com or call 770-701-9970 to schedule your completely free roof inspection and mention the Marc McMain Show for a $150 credit towards qualifying roofs.
Hey, this is attorney Bart Bitton with Bitton & Bitton. I live and work right here in Monroe, Georgia, and I am proud to serve this area. If you've been hurt in a car accident, you don't need some out-of-town lawyer that treats you like a number. You deserve a local lawyer you can trust, someone who lives here, works here, and takes care of people. So remember this, if you're ever in a car accident, be smart, call Bart. Bitton & Bitton, local lawyers you can trust.
Welcome back to the Marc McMain Show. Folks, this is your host, Taylor Hawkins, filling in for Marc McMain as he has been out campaigning. But, funnily enough, we actually have a very special guest back in studio, Marc McMain.
I told you, alternate reality.
That's right.
This is just craziness on the radio. What's happening, Chastity?
It's the Matrix.
Being introduced on your own show.
How has she been doing, by the way, in my absence? She's been behaving herself.
Chastity, and
It's so
you
fun.
got a great team here.
I do.
They
I'm blessed.
They know what they're
Yeah.
doing, and they're sharp.
Yeah.
It
But we
really
miss
is a
you.
blessing.
We definitely
Well, I miss you
having
guys.
here in the
I haven't been up
studios.
here in a while, so it's great to
Yeah.
be in Good Hope. This is home right here.
And Taylor brings a great little edginess to it that's very Christian based
Love
as
it.
well. So
Yeah, it's
Taylor
good listening.
Does a great
It is.
job.
It is really good listening, Taylor.
Try to push people to think a little deeper. There's a lot of people who want to feed off of our desire to make quick decisions and not think about things too deeply. I think it does everybody no favors to do that. I think we should think deeply about the issues that matter, and so that's just a little bit.
Well,
of
I
what
think
wanna
that's another
provide.
byproduct of what we talked about in the first segment too. Is people's attention span is shorter, Taylor. It's like how is it now that we can't capture somebody for an in-depth conversation? Everything has to be in morsels, in bits, right?
Right.
So I think that is a negative byproduct of that phenomena where people just don't. It's hard to hold their attention.
It's the phones. Put the phones down.
No, I agree.
It's
Just
so
be
true.
mindful. Just to put it down. Take baby steps. 5 minutes a day. Work your way up. Maybe more, but definitely be mindful. Try not to even pull it out at dinner. I try not to even.
That's right.
Have my phone out.
And
at
folks,
all.
I say this. I'm sometimes my own worst enemy. I'm guilty of it, right? Because you feel like you have to be engaged, you have to respond to something. And so it's that I think I was talking to Brian Strickland the other day, who's running for Attorney General, and he and I were talking about this exact thing. And Brian had a brilliant idea because his kids are younger than mine. And he said, "Hey, he goes, I'm starting to just take my phone and basically, putting it in the freezer, so to
Yes.
speak, jokingly, but
Yeah.
just getting it out of sight, out of mind, and having that time. And he's younger than I am, but I think I learned something from him. So there's
I like
proof of concept to just get it away from you where you can't access it, put it in your safe, and then you pick it back up at 8 o'clock the next morning.
Exactly. Kind of like the dishes when you don't really feel like doing the dishes, but the dish fairy's not going to show up and do them for you. That message is not going anywhere. So when you pick up that phone 2 hours later, it'll be there. So.
Liliana's out of town right now, and there is no dish fairy in the house. It's a mess, Chastity.
I got to admit, as I got older and realized there was no dish fairy, it was kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, it is.
There's no dish fairy.
No dish fairy.
Yeah.
And I don't mind cooking, but I struggle doing dishes. I can't touch wet food. It makes me wanna
Charlie and I will
puke.
come help you.
It's a hot mess over there. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention and chat about, Mark, is it is actually, again, tied back to the whole theme of what we've been talking about so far, which is analyzing what's going on in the world and understanding truth. The SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, this is breaking news in the last 24 to 48 hours. This is an organization that's existed for decades, claiming to fight racism and hatred. And they have made all kinds of claims, wild accusations about just normative conservatives, normal Republican groups and people across the United States. And they've been the basis of just a incredibly huge amount of negative reporting, of investigation, and things like that based on their accusations of hatred and racism. Well, it has just come out, folks, that the SPLC has been indicted by a federal grand jury on 11 criminal counts, including wire fraud and money laundering, because what they said they were doing to their donors, which is fighting racism, they were actually taking that money to fund the very racism they were fighting. In fact, they funneled over $3 million to members of extremist groups who, apart from that, would have gone extinct. We're talking about groups like the KKK, neo-Nazi groups across America. I'm sure most of the people listening, sometimes they hear, stories about that, and you're like, who is that anymore? Who actually are those people? I've never seen anything like that. And now we have proof. No one has, because these were just paid actors, essentially.
Think of this, Taylor. So think of it, and I just learned about this last night. My brother shared this story with me, not in the great detail that you're about to go into, but I've been saying this since I ran for Congress 6 years ago.
Yep.
That the left requires that racism exist for them to be relevant.
They do.
And so you have entities and individuals who have made fortunes off of the fact that they have to prop this up.
That's right.
So I think this is what we're discovering, is that precisely is what's taking place. They've been propping this up so they remain relevant. Because think about it. Your race baiters that are out there, the famous talking heads that we all know, they would not exist if racism doesn't exist. So it's in their best interest to continue this going. Obama was the best at it.
He was. And it's again, kind of getting back to we need to be making decisions based on reality, based on truth.
Yeah.
What they were doing appealed directly to people's sort of instinct of, there's evil out there. And they were assigning it to, again, normative conservative groups. So people who just held views like, police should fight crime. People who held views like we should judge people on the basis of their merit, not the color of their skin.
That's right. Yeah.
Things like that. They were labeled hate groups by the SPLC, and this was a massive fraud scheme. I mean, there are.
But just think of what else is going to get uncovered with this, Taylor, because I think this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to find out that there's other entities that are engaged in the same practice, and let's not forget what just took place in Virginia. They want to say, well, this is a chance to, stop Donald Trump. What they really want, what they're trying to do in Virginia, is bring back this radical leftist woke culture that in just 14 months or 15 months, President Trump has evaporated, from secure borders to the boys and girls sports. And I know the left right now is cringing when I say, they just keep saying the same old thing. That's because you got to own it. They've never owned it. You've got to own. These were your ideologies. And by doing what they just did in Virginia, they're trying to bring this garbage back. That is their mission in life. So the whole concept of woke ideology, it's not dead. They're doing their darndest to revive it. It was on life support because of Trump.
Yeah.
Right? He'd almost squash it out. But that's what now is trying to take place, is they love this stuff. They want to see boys and girls sports. They want to see open borders. They want to see the radical element of this country be front and center.
Well, the sad reality is that those people are they have effectively infiltrated institutions across America, whether you talk about the media, academia, even our cultural analysis, where you're talking about Hollywood or the music industry. Leftism has infiltrated and taken over almost every institution that we hold dear, except for the church, and there's even impact there. And in some cases, in some states, government. Those are some of the only institutions we have left that have been completely taken over.
And talk radio.
That's right. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, come back to this show for the analysis of news that you trust. But it's important because we must realize that some people may get sick of the talk about wokeness and all this stuff. It's not going away. It's coming back. These people are deeply entrenched in their institutions, and they want to bring it back. So it's not enough to just shine a spotlight on it. We have to fight it.
And they're patient, Taylor.
They are.
They're very patient. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's one of their more admirable qualities. I wish we had more patience sometimes on the right.
I wish we had more time. This is like the fastest. Is this 30 minutes already that we're almost upon?
Almost.
This is nuts.
It's crazy. Folks, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. We got about 5 more minutes left until our commercial break, talking with Marc McMain himself, who's been running an excellent campaign for state senate. I'm so glad to have him in studio. One of the things, Marc, I texted you just before the program, and this again, directly bears on the topics we've been talking about, is there was some data analysis done, and it looked at mental health based on party affiliation and age. And so if you look at young folks, particularly, the percentage of younger people diagnosed with a mental health problem goes up over 3 to 4 times if you identify as a strong Democrat versus identifying as a strong Republican.
Really?
3 to 4. That's 300 to 400% increase.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. It's incredible, but it makes sense. I mean, honestly, because if you think about that, this is an ideology that convinces people to avoid marriage and children for travel and career. Yep. It convinces people to avoid God, church, and faith because they're oppressive, bigoted, and narrow-minded. It convinces everyone that everything is oppressive and there's no hope of escaping it, no hope of succeeding in life. And if you preach an ideology of hopelessness, then you can't be surprised when the people who listen to you have mental health problems.
Well, and they've also introduced the whole transgender movement over the past 5 years.
That's right.
That was just, I'm not going to say non-existent prior to that, but is infinitesimal. Now you're going to tell me that there's this mass increase in people that want to become transgender. So I think this all falls in line. And, mental health is one of the pillars of my campaign. I know you didn't cue that up for me, but it is. It's one of the pillars of my campaign. We have a problem.
Yes.
If you go to Athens, you can see it.
Yes.
In person. You can see it manifesting. And I firmly believe that the conservative approach is to get to the core root of what's taking place and systemically fix it, where the liberal approach is to appease and enable.
That's right.
And that's what they've been doing, is appeasing and enabling, giving clean needles, giving all these things to let them continue their lifestyle, whereas we've got to get to the core of why our country, the moral fabric of our country is disintegrating, and it's right at our doorstep.
And caring about this issue is one of the reasons that conservatives like you and I fight things like critical race theory. Because critical race theory is in schools teaching kids that they cannot be more than their skin color. That their skin color will determine their outcome. I mean, how oppressive and hopeless an ideology that is, and how debilitating to their ability to build success in the future. It's not because you and I are obsessed with politics. It's because we want the best for our neighbor. And allowing that kind of weaponization of our taxpayer-funded education system to see these kinds of narratives, again, it's not just that it's political, it's hopeless.
Yep.
It's hopeless, it's oppressive, and it is in itself racist as well. And those kind of things, they just have no place in our public life.
No, we're struggling as a country. There's massive improvement we can make as a state. Georgia's a wonderful state, but there's huge room for improvement. And I'm excited. I want to be a part of that solution. I want to be part of the improvement, not just to bring up Georgia, but to bring up this country. And it's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to be painful at times. There is. I mean, we can see it right now. There's to undo 4 years of leadership from Biden. It's hard to undo that.
That's right.
And that's what we're going through. So we're feeling the pains. Remember, you talked about it before, the pleasure before the pain?
Yes.
Well, now we're feeling the pain of fixing this, perceived pleasure that we had under Biden. So it's there's more to be done. I'm excited about being a part of the process, and I appreciate you squeaking me in today. This was fun, Taylor.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. I so appreciate your desire to stand on a policy platform that really does put your neighbor first, that loves other people, and that is based in ultimate truth and grounded in a value system that you and I both share. It means a lot to me.
Well, and I appreciate your counsel. You're a young man, half my age, but you're a wise man on your years, and so I appreciate the conversations that we have and behind the scenes. So And kudos to what you're doing here on the show. Good work.
That's all God. Can't take advantage of that, or can't take.
And
credit.
big hugs to your family for me, please.
I will, certainly will.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us, folks. You're listening to the Marc McMain Show. This is Taylor Hawkins, your host. We'll be back right after a short commercial break with another awesome guest. Stick around.
Hey y'all, this is Bethany, owner of Willfully Guided Co. Boots and Western Apparel. From durable work boots built for long days to statement pieces ready for Saturday night and everything in between, we've got the brands that feel just right for everyone in the family. Stop by and see why we're your one-stop shop. Willfully Guided Co. Boots and Western Apparel is located at 116 South Broad Street, right in the heart of downtown Monroe. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to keep up with all the fun events happening with Willfully Guided Co. and for previews of all of our newest merchandise.
Storm damage can shorten the life of your roof, and here at Joshua 19 Roofing, we make sure your home stays protected. We're more than just a roofing company servicing Georgia. We're committed Christians called to serve God by helping others. After this year's wind and hail storms, we've helped dozens of homeowners just like you start the insurance process for a full roof replacement. Visit joshua19roofing.com or call 770-701-9970 to schedule your completely free roof inspection and mention the Marc McMain Show for a $150 credit towards qualifying roofs.
Lake Life is the Lake Area's largest award-winning magazine, reaching over 25,000 readers. Pick up your copy of Lake Life magazine today. Get Lake Life free at over 100 convenient locations in Georgia's Lake Country. And keep in mind, you'll receive your free copy with a subscription to the Lake Oconee News or the Eatonton Messenger. Lake Life. It's all about the lives and events in Georgia's Lake Country. Call 706-485-3501 to subscribe. Lake Life, the biggest, the best, and it's free.
Welcome back, folks. You're listening to the Marc McMain Show on WMOQ. This is your host, Taylor Hawkins, where we try to provide interesting and engaging content that brightens your day, makes you a better and more informed individual. Today, I hope you got to hear some of our conversation with Marc McMain, who stopped by earlier in the hour. It was a great conversation. If not, it will be posted on WMOQ's website. But right now, I have the opportunity to talk to another friend of mine, Brunson Gunter. Brunson is best friends with his wife. I love that when you gave me a bio, that's the first thing you put. I love that so much. He is daddy to 2 teenage daughters. He's been a firefighter for 28 years. He's a district officer for Walton County Fire and a small business owner. Most importantly, he's a sinner saved by the grace of Jesus Christ. Brunson, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, Brunson, you and I met not all that long ago.
That's right.
And we hit it off talking about the problems that our world faces, particularly with regard to young men, and even the way that, let's say, the church and Christianity messages to young men.
Right.
It's very important to see what God has for young men, how He's hardwired us, and what does that mean about our responsibility. So I know you've been taking leadership in starting the Bible study that you run, and that's a wonderful thing. But talk to me a bit about where your passion for this kind of thing comes from.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. We a few years ago just got convicted. Just looking at the world, I've got 2 teenage daughters, and thinking, where are we going? What's the direction the world's going in? When you're the dad of 2 teenage daughters, you realize that there's going to be some guys out there eventually that you are going to want to marry them, and you start looking around and thinking, man, what's there? And it's a pretty selfish way to look at it, but it's reality. And I was talking to my wife about it one day, and she's like, well, if you don't see what you like, then we should do something about that. And so out of that was 2 things. One was the realization that it's easy to identify problems. We as people are really good at identifying them and then hoping and praying somebody else comes along to fix it, versus identifying the problem and then asking the Lord, what is it you want me to do to make a difference and make that change? And so out of that turned into a ministry we started for young men. At the time, it was about having some kids come out and being able to teach them how to work with their hands, how to do some things, and at the same time teach them what God's Word says about what a biblical man actually is. And what ended up happening was I had multiple dads call me and go, I need this. And so I realized that I was trying to get the cart before the horse. What we really needed was to build a foundation of men who understand what biblical masculinity is. And then from there, Lord willing, it'll spur into a program that can minister to boys.
That's right. And that's a wonderful thing. I love what you touched on. There's a lot of people who want to spend hot air, if you will, talking about the problems, and who are willing to criticize, willing to point out what's going wrong. There's very few people willing to jump into the trenches, and I feel like part of that is actually related to the problem we're talking about, which is the absence of the ability to take responsibility.
True.
If I jump into the trenches, then I in some way bear responsibility for the outcome of what I'm doing.
Right.
If I just stand back and point fingers, then that, my perceived moral obligation is much lower, and that's part of the problem that we see is a lot of dads, a lot of fathers, and men out there are much more willing to criticize than they are to jump in and engage. So I appreciate the fact that you've been engaging.
Yeah. Well, I think about John Quincy Adams all the time. Is one of his favorite famous quotes is "Duty is ours, results are God's." And when you think that it amazes me the number of people that will say to me, "I'm praying about whether I should do this or that." And I understand the need for prayer, obviously, to get the Lord to lead you in the direction you need to go. But when you're praying about doing something that's right and that's biblical, I think what you're really doing is stalling.
Yeah.
God's already told you. If it's in His Word and it's the right thing to do, then you just need to do it. The results of that are up to God. It's our duty to just act. My wife has a quote she gives me all the time. She looks at me when I'm talking about, what about this? What about that? She'll look at me and she'll say, do the next thing. So whatever that next right thing is that's in front of you, just get busy doing it. The results of that, God will handle.
I love that. I love that because it's an encouragement not to allow whatever you're feeling at the moment, whether that's fear, anxiety, because everyone goes through those times. I would say on a regular basis. I mean, if you're doing anything meaningful, whether that's raising kids or holding down a stressful job, anything like that, or maybe you're changing jobs, maybe you're moving states, maybe you're doing something phenomenal with a new business. All of those things will bring fear. They'll bring moments of anxiety, and if you allow that to just stay nebulous and to hold you down, then you're never going to be able to move forward.
Right.
And it's essential to at least in that moment realize, okay, I have to do the next right thing. I have to do the next thing in front of me. I have to keep making progress because that's ultimately what I'm accountable for, is not to make sure everything's perfect, but to make progress.
Right. Absolutely. Well, it's like you and I were discussing the other day. One of the things that I think we're missing is personal responsibility. You mentioned responsibility just a few minutes ago. It is, we want to be in charge of something. We want to be with your family. If you're the man of your home, the church is telling men, as a general rule, that you're in charge of your family. You're the man of the house. So essentially, they're passing it off as a dictator. That's not it. God's word's clear that you are responsible for your home, and that responsibility means that you're responsible for your wife and your children's happiness. You're responsible for their spiritual walk. You're responsible for their needs being met, whether they're the most basic or their spiritual or emotional needs. You're responsible for your children's education. And when you realize how what responsibility is and what that really means, you find yourself putting yourself in a whole nother category and another level of the weight that really is falling on you. And in all of life, if we can take personal responsibility and actually apply it to ourselves, a lot of our problems go away.
That's right. That's right. Folks, I know there's a lot of you listening, by the way. This is the Marc McMain Show on WMOQ. I'm your host, Taylor Hawkins, talking with Brunson Gunter, who is a district officer for the Walton County Fire Department, a friend of mine, and who has gotten in the trenches on the issues we're talking about. Brunson, it's something that I hope people understand. We're not talking about this subject because we want to preach at people. Right. And the reason we continue to reference what God says in His Word is because you're a handyman. I've done some work in contracting, and I currently work. My main job is a roofer. And when you're building something, the designer is the one who decides the best use case for what he is building. Right.
Right. Correct.
And the designer of us as men is God. So when we are looking around, to your point earlier, and noticing what's broken, we need to realize there's a designer's template that tells us how men are supposed to behave. And if we don't follow that, then we're going to continue seeing the problems that we have. So us referencing what the Bible says about masculinity, referencing God, is not, again, a desire to preach at people. It's a desire to help them to realize what they were created for, because it's for more than just vegging on the couch playing video games.
Right. Well, for me, everything that I say to people, and when people call and ask me questions, the reality is all I'm doing is sharing with them the exact same thing that I'm dealing with in my life. So you're absolutely right. This isn't preaching to anyone. Every idea that I share with folks is exactly where I am and exactly what the Lord is teaching me. So often the best sermons that a pastor preaches is the ones he just lived.
That's right.
It's the same thing with a comedian. The funniest guys out there are the ones that are telling you the story of what just happened to them yesterday. Their delivery is just amazing, and that makes them funny. You could have a different guy tell the exact same story who has not much of a sense of humor, and it's just a story. And so when we sit down every other Tuesday night when we meet with the men in our group, I'm not preaching to them. It is a group of men sitting around in a circle who are all in various different places with different age children. Some are married, some are not. So it's multiple walks of life going, these are biblical principles made by our Creator for how we are supposed to function. How does that apply specifically to me? How does that apply specifically to you? And so it looks slightly different in everyone's life, but it's the exact same blueprint.
That's right.
And so we figure out what those principles are and apply them.
And I would argue that doing that is the best way. A lot of people like to use the phrase "love your neighbor." It's tossed around a lot by people who are saved and who aren't saved. But I would argue that one of the best ways you can do that is to not just, again, notice the problems that our society is facing, notice the problems that people in your church are facing, people in your community, but then find the solutions that will help them not just fix the surface level of that problem, the effects, but go deeper and find out, okay, what is the mindset? What is the worldview that's underlying this, and how can we fix that? So rather than me just giving you a temporary solution, it's cliche for a reason. Don't give a man a fish, teach him to fish, and he can provide for himself.
Right,
that's way better. And so that's what you're doing. And to me, I think this is one of the easiest ways to see the practicality of Christianity, to notice the sort of countless ways in which Christianity evidences itself to be true, because you see the love of God in providing for this template in how the church is supposed to behave. He says in Timothy, one of the pastoral epistles, he commands that older men are to teach younger men. So God recognizes, like, this is how I've designed it. You learn lessons, whether it's the hard way or the easy way,
right.
And then you should turn around and help others also.
Yeah.
And that's what you're trying to do, and I just love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesus is the cornerstone. And so in our group, the thing that we discuss is that there's a root issue. And so it's super simple, really, to throw things at surface problems. But the surface problems either compound or they just become slightly different. The root issue is always still the same. And so if we're going to correct biblical masculinity in this country and ultimately the world, we have to realize what the foundation actually is. And that is Jesus. And to understand his love for us and how we're going to love our neighbor, what he actually did for us, what it meant for him personally, what he felt, what he understood. We live, you hear from the pulpit all the time, is God sent his only son to die on the cross for your sins. 100% true. In all honesty, I can't square that in my mind. I can't really understand what that's like, because I wouldn't do that for anyone. There's no way I would send either one of my daughters to die for someone. But when I think about what Jesus did and the way he saw it, and when he prayed to his Father and said, "Let this pass from me, but nevertheless not my will but thine be done," he knew the God side of himself. He knew what he was about to experience. The human side of him was going, "Please, I don't want to do this, but I'm willing." And when I think about that, I can actually square that in my mind.
Yes.
And then I realize, man, starting with that as my foundation and moving forward gives me a whole new perspective.
And Christ lived the life that we couldn't, not only to set us a pattern of how to live, because that's exactly what we have to do every day.
Right.
Feelings were given by God, our ability to feel and emote, but those are not to lead us. And so when we're in those moments where we know what the right thing to do is, and we can't stand the thought of doing it. We have to be able to do like Christ said and say, this is painful, but it's not my will. It's not my authority. That's where the principle of stewardship comes in, realizing that my body's not my own. My time is not my own. Everything that God gives, I am a steward over, and I will give account for that on the day of judgment. Again, it's not to preach to people. It's to say, look, you need to kind of realize who you are in this world and what God has given you and created you to be so that you don't have to be ashamed on that judgment day.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will give an account. And for me, we talked the other day when we first met, is to figure out what is my life going to look like when I'm done and I stand before my Savior. I want him to say, well done, good and faithful servant. What does that actually look like? Because it's a nice thing to say, but how does that really translate to my specific life? And if I think I've got 2 daughters, and if I pour everything that I have into them, they in turn get married and raise families and have however many children and do the same thing. And then my grandchildren do the same thing. When you look at that size of the scale, that's doable. And if you think about all the ways it can be changed, you can change lots through politics. You can also change much more through individual people and individual homes and families.
Yes.
That's how we were designed. And if we can get that, and we can change one family at a time that then reproduces itself into the next generation, then we can turn our country back to its original foundation.
So important and so convicting. Folks, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. It's my guest, Brunson Gunter, you've been listening to. Really appreciate his take on godly masculinity. We're going to continue this conversation right after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere.
Serving Watkinsville and the surrounding area since 2002, it's Outdoor Specialty, featuring a wide variety of plants, trees, shrubs, ground cover, and more. Plus, you'll find a full line of irrigation supplies like sprinkler heads, pipe replacement parts, and more. Add some beauty to your home with a huge selection of pottery, landscape stones, mulch, and more. Step into the garden center and see their great selection of bird feeders, bird houses, Cole's bird seed, and so much more. Don't forget to pick up some of Elsie's apple-flavored deer corn. Stop in and say hello to Elsie, Diane, and the rest of the friendly staff at Outdoor Specialty, 1460 Greensboro Highway in Watkinsville. Open Monday through Saturday. Phone 706-769-8737. That's 706-769-8737. That's OutdoorSpecialtyNursery.com.
Storm damage can shorten the life of your roof, and here at Joshua 19 Roofing, we make sure your home stays protected. We're more than just a roofing company servicing Georgia. We're committed Christians called to serve God by helping others. After this year's wind and hail storms, we've helped dozens of homeowners just like you start the insurance process for a full roof replacement. Visit Joshua19roofing.com or call 770-701-9970 to schedule your completely free roof inspection and mention the Marc McMain Show for a $150 credit towards qualifying roofs.
Lake Life is the Lake Area's largest award-winning magazine, reaching over 25,000 readers. Pick up your copy of Lake Life magazine today. Get Lake Life free at over 100 convenient locations in Georgia's Lake Country. And keep in mind, you'll receive your free copy with a subscription to the Lake Oconee News or the Eatonton Messenger. Lake Life. It's all about the lives and events in Georgia's Lake Country. Call 706-485-3501 to subscribe. Lake Life, the biggest, the best, and it's free.
Welcome back to the Marc McMain Show on WMOQ. I am your host, Taylor Hawkins, filling in for Mark, who is campaigning. He's doing an awesome job running for state senate, by the way. But I've got in studio a wonderful guest, a friend of mine, Brunson Gunter, who's a district officer at the Walton County Fire Department. And Brunson, I wanted to kind of bring that in. How has being a firefighter and serving your community in that way shaped your view of what we've been talking about in terms of men and their place in society and what God requires of them? How do you think that's had an impact on you?
Well, the current position is district captain. And so there's several stations that are my responsibility to keep up with. I happen to be very blessed with a phenomenal crew of guys that don't require micromanaging in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And so that's really nice for me.
That's a blessing.
But one of the things that I've learned in my current position, which translates directly into how we're supposed to be the man of our home, is to realize that I'm not in charge of something. My dad always told me that if you have to tell people that you're in charge of something, then you're doing it wrong. When you walk into a situation, if you're responsible for what's going on, then people know that, and you lead by example. And so, when I teach a class, it's the same thing I tell the guys there is, we are responsible based on the position that you have. So it's my job to make sure that my guys are well trained, that they know how to do their job. Since I am responsible, when things don't go right, that's hung around me. And so when you see that as your position, then you realize the responsibility you have is to ensure that the people that work for you are well trained to do their job and to do it right. In the same way that if I'm responsible for my home, it's my job to ensure that my children are being trained correctly, that my wife has the things that she needs, that she has the desires of her heart as much as is possible for me to accomplish that we make sure that we're in a solid Bible-believing church so that they're being fed. It is not the pastor's job to teach my wife and my children everything there is to know about Scripture.
That's right.
That's mine. It's perfectly acceptable for me to make sure that we're in a Bible-believing church where they can be fed that way, but it is not acceptable to pass that off to the church and for me to quit. In the same way, it's not acceptable for me to pass off the education of my children to any school system, private school, it doesn't matter. It is still my responsibility. And so you should be engaged in everything going on to know what's happening.
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, you are responsible.
And I think that understanding of responsibility helps give you a better picture of what real servant leadership is. Because I know I've talked about this before, but I think there's a misunderstanding oftentimes of what servant leadership is. It's talked about as though that means that every leader has to do every menial task. And while it is true that if you're not willing to serve, you're not prepared to lead, that's not really what servant leadership means. It really means putting others first in the way you make decisions.
Right.
But if God's put you in a leadership position, you don't lead well by failing to. You don't actually fulfill that responsibility by not stepping up and leading. You need to be the one making decisions, but to your point, taking responsibility, not just issuing commands, but taking responsibility to sit down and say, okay, what is best for the people that God has given me at this time and place, whether that's at work or at school or at church or in community service. Anything where you have been given a position of leadership, you serve by leading others with a selfless mentality. And it's so much, in a way, it's so much harder to do than this false idea of servant leadership, which is just, make sure you're the one willing to take out the trash.
Right. It's very interesting to me. I struggle with delegating responsibilities to people. Because for me, I would just assume just go do it. Not because I can do it better than anybody else or anything like that. It's just for me, I'm a doer. I'm a servant. I want to go make something happen. What's interesting is my mentality had always been, I need to be the one doing. As long as I'm the one doing, then people will follow. You lead from the front, you lead by example. That's true to an extent. What I have learned is that if my guys, for example, at work, see me, they learn to respect me because I earn it, not because I do it. Then when I begin to delegate responsibilities to them, they are more than happy to take on those responsibilities because they know that I'm willing to do them. And so there's a difference between I'm always doing, because then what are they doing? I'm just a tired leader.
Right.
But there's also a difference in delegating everything and you become a dictator.
Yep.
And people don't follow that well for good reason. But when you have spent time leading by example, when you begin to delegate, guys go, absolutely, because they know that if they couldn't do it, you are very willing to jump in.
That's right. It's important to realize that true respect is never actually demanded. It can be, you can try, but that's just compliance. True respect has to be earned. You can never just demand it and get it. And so I think it's so important to realize that in those positions when God's placed you in leadership, that does come not just with the responsibility to lead, but it comes with a higher level of responsibility too, of making sure that I am the kind of person that someone else is willing to follow. And I think that's why leadership is so important for people to be willing to assume. When God calls, answer that, whether it's as a husband, as a father, as a, taking that promotion, being willing to assume a greater amount of responsibility pushes men to stop being passive and to get out there to shoulder the burdens of life in a way that I think is very healthy.
Absolutely. It's something it's a point that I've learned recently that it hit me like a ton of bricks, if you will, is it was about a story of a man that recognized children around him, the struggles they were having. Ultimately, he adopted multiple children. And through that, what he learned was, he said, I wanted to be the calm in their storm. And when I read that story, I was relating it back to biblical masculinity, what a man is for any leader he is at work, and also what a man is for a leader in his home. And what hit me was, are you the kind of man that is the calm in your family storm, or are you the storm? Because there are men that will come home and their family is now moving into the most turmoil of their entire day because dad is home, versus walking into your home that may have had various little things of turmoil going in, and now calm is there. And so you walk in the door and your wife knows the whole evening is going to go better. Dad's home. The children know daddy's home, so we can have fun because we love daddy. Or is it now everybody's on eggshells because dad just walked in the door? That relates the exact same way to work. Which one of those kind of guys are you, and what do you want to be?
Yes, it's such an important question to ask. Folks, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. Your host, Taylor Hawkins. We're talking to Brunson Gunter. Brunson, I really appreciate that point, because I heard a pastor put it so eloquently recently. He was talking about 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and there aren't a lot of men who love listening to the love chapter being talked about, but it describes what love is, and God is love, and we are to image God. So it's important to kind of grasp that. And he says love is patient, love is kind, and there's so many other character qualities that the Bible gives of love in that chapter. And he said, if you as a man can't put your name in for love in terms of how you behave with your family, then you are failing as a man to image God to your family.
That's exactly right.
Sobering truth.
Yeah, it is sacrificial love. We love to quote multiple verses in the Bible that talks about how the wife is supposed to submit to her husband and those types. If you read the whole thing, so as Christians, quite often we'll pull out parts of Scripture we like and leave the rest of it that's a little uncomfortable for us.
That's right.
And the reality is, ultimately, we are told to love our families as Christ loves the church, which is nothing but sacrifice.
Yes.
And so if I am loving my wife in the way that I'm supposed to, like Christ loves me, then it will be easy for her to submit, if you will. Because why wouldn't she? I am fully sacrificially loving her in every way possible. That's an easy one for her.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we like the parts of the Bible that are convenient for us, but it's important for us to understand the entire gospel from cover to cover.
I love the saying, never read a Bible verse.
That's right.
Meaning, don't ever take it out of context. Realize why it's there, what it's intended for. And, you and I were talking about the example of Adam in Scripture earlier in our last conversation. And it's so important for men to realize that the reason that this conversation is important, the reason that their design of being a man and how they're supposed to fulfill that is important, is because Satan is attacking them. He wants them to be passive. When Satan came and whispered lies to Eve in the garden, Adam, we know from Scripture, was standing right there. Yeah. And he refused to confront the lies. He refused to step in and fight the devil on behalf of his wife. He refused to protect her. And while she certainly bears responsibility for her decision, he bears responsibility for failing to guard the garden and being passive.
Right.
And that temptation whispers in the heart of every man today. And so we must understand it and be willing to confront it.
Yeah, we need men that will protect their families, period, that will stand against Satan. And Satan is working hard at destroying every aspect he possibly can. And by the way, currently, he's doing a really good job. And I know you were just talking in the last segment about social media. I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old daughter, and they don't have social media accounts. I am amazed at what we allow into our home, and then we're confused as to why it's fallen apart.
Yes.
We allowed it. We literally let it in. If there are people that knocked on my front door that were going to come into my home and do and say the things that we watch on TV and that we let come across our phones, there's no way in the world that I would let them in my front door. And yet, I let them in my front door. And whose responsibility is that? It's mine.
We don't just let them in the front door. We let them into our child's bedroom with the door shut.
Absolutely. And we pay for it.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's just when you think about what we're doing and what we're allowing, you talk about propaganda and when is the plane going to fly over and start dropping propaganda out of the plane? Never. It's here.
That's
we're
right.
paying for it. We're allowing it. We're accepting it. And we need to know. You need to know what's happening in your home.
It's so true. Well, Brunson, thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. The things you've said today are very key. Be the calm for your family. Stand up. Take responsibility and be the person that protects those in your charge. I think these are, and so many of the other observations you've given are very helpful. So thank you for the time. Thank you for coming into the studio.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much.
Folks, you've been listening to The Marc McMain Show. Come back and catch us every weekday at this time, 12 to 1. And I'll be back next week to bring more interesting and engaging content. This is The Marc McMain Show. My name is Taylor Hawkins on WMOQ.